Good evening, Dr. Shabina. My name is Jayalida Balan, and today's project presentation is in relation to the formulation of mental disorders. And the research, the literature review, and the research that I have done on is based on real life event, which is in relation to myself and also in relation to the client that I had a session with. So, without wasting any time further, let's go into my first slide. Okay, the case formulation journal that I've chosen is in relation to the International Journal of Personality Disorders. It's a comparison of personality disorders among students, among teenagers in this era. So, how do they react? And what kind of stress normally teenagers have? Why are they going through all this kind of stress? And how does a counselor plays an important role in the session. And I wanted to discuss on the Gen Z generation of road police as well. And I've come up with several ideology on if you get bullied, what are you supposed to do and things like that. And I have chosen the narcissistic disorders among spouses as well. And this is the real life event that, real life scenario that I had a session with my client, and I've attached several reports on my clients session as well. So the case formulation portfolio is in relation to the personality disorders among my client with their spouses and the personality of road police. Based on the introduction, the nature of cases, which is real versus hypothetical, and I have decided to take real life cases, which would have, which is easier for me to handle, and it was actually it was based on my client's real life experience with a narcissist person, as well as the real life event of road police that I have experienced myself. So mental health. Let's go into the definition of mental health. Mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual is aware of their own abilities. So it doesn't mean if you have got mental health or mental disorders, you cannot be like you and me. You cannot be like a normal person. You can. So you can handle stress well. You can work productively. You can contribute to the society according to Ministry of Health Malaysia 2013. So mental health is currently the most important issue being debated in Malaysia as well as in the world. So it's a globe uh, discussion where it's globally proven statistically by WHO 2019, where the number of world's population suffers from mental disorders. It's about 264 million, bipolar affective disorders about 45 million, and schizophrenia about 20 million. So let's go into the mental health illness is different from mental disorders. As far as what I've researched, in my opinion, I feel mental disorders refers to a psychological behavior pattern that is generally related to stress that is not considered normal development. So you have got a mental disorder, it can be schizophrenia. You might have hallucination. You cannot handle yourself. You might be all very stressed up. You can even hurt yourself. And some people will end up committing suicide as well. That is more of the mental disorder. Whereas mental disorder is a combination of affective behavior, cognitive or perceptual disorders related to the functions of the brain or nervous system. So you've got to take medication. You need a psychiatrist to prescribe medication and things like that. So mental disorders cases are generally managed by psychiatrists, like what I said just now. So among the most mental disorders that individuals suffer from are like depression, schizophrenia, and suicidal tendencies. So that's a case related to it, which is Nur Hayati 2019. So however, mental well-being covers psychological, mental, and physical aspects that contribute to the property of the society, economic, and ecological aspects of human well-being. So mental disorders are more a serious thing. Well, whereas stress and things like that, you can still lead a normal life. But nevertheless, when you have mental illness and it's not treated, it can be related to mental disorders as well. Okay, going into my Okay, looking at the factors in determining mental health. So, parenting style. Parents play a very important role in in making sure that the adolescent or the teenagers, or even they themselves as adults, they play a very important role in determining the mental health of an individual. So, parents for students and students at this era the parents should contribute in making sure that the child is in a normal state of mind. So especially among students. So according to the fourth edition of the Day-One Dictionary, parents mean parents such as mothers and fathers who are parents, or maybe biological parents, or maybe guardians. They still play a very important role in the way they handle the child. So parenting style is very important because it functions in shaping values in children such as religion, moral values, love, and any other values related to family. In addition, parenting style also plays a very important role in determining the stability, the peace, and happiness of the family. So parents are responsible for educating and guiding their children if they make mistakes. So they contribute a very important development in the children as superior personality. And going into my next slide, what about the counseling overview? So overall, it's very important for a counselor to play a very important role in making sure that the client has got something, the benefit that a client gets during a session. So counseling implications of stress among parents towards their secondary school children requires a holistic approach. So how do you implement a holistic approach so that recognizes family dynamics? So a counselor would play a very important role in a session if a client is very stressed. How do you handle the session? What do you do? And things like that. So it is at high risk if there are value conflicts, abuse, or critical mental health issues. Referral or professional collaboration is required when the issue is outside in the area of competence. So if let's say a psychologist or a psychiatrist, they are there to prescribe the medication. A counselor plays a very important role in the overall recognition of the issue. So, secondary, the question arises on how it is done by a counselor. So, a counselor needs to prepare a clinical report. Brief with client or parents consent and refer them to an appropriate specialist such as a child or an adolescent has got needs the help of a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So referral letters are very important in making sure that the counselor has analyzed everything appropriately. And if let's say the counselor feel this client needs medication, then yes, the counselor will have to refer to the psychiatrist or the psychologist. So the 4P cases formulation plays a very important role in here. Okay, contributing factors. What are the contributing factors? The causes of mental disorders are complex and multifunctional, biological factors and social factors. So, as I said, the causes of mental disorders, which are very complex, this is when a family plays a very important role. Whereas the biological factors is the chemical imbalances in the brain damages. Psychologists play a very important role in making sure or analyzing even a counselor to make sure that to analyze and to understand probably the child has got a problem during their childhood trauma, chronic disease, stress, or negative thinking that can increase uh, a mental disorder among a child. So social factors are like the discrimination, the poverty, the religious opinion, and people around them, and the stress that they go through during their development. And looking at the cognitive behavior therapy, so if you ask me, I think that CBT plays a very important role to make sure that the clients that there should be a development in the client when the client comes for a session. So the counselor has got to make sure the counselor understands all the therapies. You cannot apply just one therapy on a client. So you've got to make sure the counselor understands the client first. You've got to have a therapeutic relationship. Then you go into the session to make sure that you analyze the client to understand the client. You give the client some homework. You make sure that the client has got confidence, or make sure that the client come up with a solution when it comes to the session. So human development is a lifelong process. Human development begins in infancy, then followed by early childhood, middle childhood, and any other adolescent until maturity. So it's an end compasses this. Um, human development based on the physical, cognitive, and psychosocial aspects. So the bio psychosocial model views human development as the results of the interactions of biological, psychological, and social factors, and which involve family, school, peers, friends, and things like that. Looking on the case study that I've analyzed, it's more of the coping mechanism and behavioral patterns that maintains the problem. A counselor will have to focus on the coping mechanism, the the behavioral patterns of the client. And to achieve the study objectives set by the researchers, several specific objectives were set in this study as well. So to identify students' knowledge and the understanding of the behavior, the factors that contribute to self-harm behavior, the counselor will have to analyze all these solutions chosen when there is an intention to harm themselves without extreme intention. And going into looking at the role of a counselor, again, the role of a counselor to handle students with these clinical features, counselors are advised to take the following approach. So normally counselors will have to use, this is more of a psychological or psychopathological kind of approach towards the client based on a counselor's view. So it's very in depth. So the counselor will have to use dialectical behaviors therapy like DBT. This is an effective gold standard intervention to help students to regulate emotions and reduce self-harm behavior. And the counselors can also prepare crisis intervention plan. A lot of skills involved, and they've got to maybe come up with some homework, some plans. So since the risk of self-harm is very high, counselors need to have a clear emergency protocol with the administrative and family. So they've got to stand by all this. If they feel that they can't handle or they feel the client is going to harm themselves, then the counsel will have to refer the client to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So counselors need to collaborate and refer students to a clinical psychologist, officer, or a psychiatric at a hospital for formal diagnosis of the mental disorder. And going into my next slide, after which is the counselor and psychological review of the session. So counselors use a variety of therapy like CBT, family therapy, focus, psychodynamic therapy, FBT, and group therapy, which plays a very important role in making sure that the client understands the session. You've got to mingle with the client. You've got to listen. Listening skills are very important. You've got to make sure that the client understands, and you've got to have a therapeutic relationship with the client because having a mental disorder and stress client, it's not very easy to mingle with them. So you've got to, first and foremost, you've got to have a good connection, good therapeutic relationship in order to understand the client and to help the patient understand the internal conflict that the client is undergoing. Looking back into the real sessions or the real case study that I have done with my client previously, where I had a session with my client and my client had issue to discuss on. And he has been going through a relationship which is NPD with a narcissistic personality disorder person. So it's a real case scenario. And in this session, my client he volunteered actually to share his issue during his divorce. Issues on his divorce matter. So the client did not have a happy marriage life whereby as time passes, the client's ex-wife or former wife began to control and dominate the client for 19 years. So a wife with a narcissistic personality can cause immense emotional, mental, and psychological stress to the person or the husband. So this toxic relationship often happens subtle behind closed doors. So the wife, she's always expecting for recognition. She lies and then she controls him and things like that. So leaving the victim very confused. She always blames him for everything, and she's very biased towards things, and she doesn't give him the freedom he needs. So he's very isolated and he feels he had this lack of confidence in him. So that's the reason he came for a session to share his problem. And looking back, these are the several toxic relationship of a narcissist person where they are very intimidating and they manipulate things, they cheat, they abuse, they disrespect, lack of support, controlling behavior, codependency, blaming each another. They're very jealous of others and they're always gaslighting and they have got all the negative things in them, which is very, very clear to show that my client really suffered with a narcissistic wife. And and the real session that I had with my client was a very fruitful session where my client, after the session, my client felt very confident and he knew that the 19 years of relationship was a very tragic and dominating kind of relationship. And he, at the end of the day, he decided to leave the wife and he filed for a divorce. And I think he's better off now. So in this session with this client where he volunteered to share, It's more of he had a very toxic relationship, and he felt very depressed, and he just lived for his children, and he didn't had his pace. So after which he felt he had more confidence after the session. So using all the therapies and all the conversation and the discussion we had during the session, which was a very fruitful one. And going into my and this is the statistics on depression among Malaysians according to the NHMS, which 1 million or 4.6% of the Malaysians aged 15 and above suffers from depression. And according to WHO, 2008 found that approximately about 450 million people worldwide are diagnosed with certain mental disorders. Going back into my next slide, the counselor's goals and priority. So based on my evaluation, personality disorders are rooted early in life and forms rigid patterns of behavior. So this makes them different to distinguish from typical personality traits or other disorders within a short assessment period. So clients may have low self-awareness, low confidence, they just don't know what they're doing, and their lack of confidence in them, and they can of course lead to many dangerous acts as well. So uh, as a counselor plays a very important role in establishing a therapeutic relationship in the early stages during the assessment period. Counselors may encounter resistance or still hostility, or clients attempting to test the counselor's boundaries. So they might be very reluctant, they might be very hostile, they might be even not comfortable with the counselor at the first session. So the counselor but nonetheless, um, the counselor has got to obey or follow the SOPs of a registered counselor by the counselor board. And the counselor has got to make sure that the session is fully based on the protocol given by the Lembaga counselor. This is a real case study, actually, which is it happened to me. And I would like to discuss on this case study where I feel road bullies, they do have a mental capacity, lacking of mental capacity in being a reasonable person on the road. So this happened to me during my travel to KL for my classes. And while I was crossing the road, this girl, she came in a very fast, she drove the car very fast, and she had to come back to justify herself, and she fought with me on the road. And well, I was trying to justify myself, and she was justifying herself, and we had an argument, and she tended to provoke me. And she left the place, upon which she came back with another friend to provoke me on the road, and it ended up into a very serious fight among us. So it can be this can be categorized as in the base of the criminal act as an assault as well. So road bullies is a serious offense where a driver acts aggressively or dangerously on the point of threatening the road passerbys. So they are always they can trigger you, and they can provoke you to commit crime. So what are you supposed to do when you come across people like this? So it's better for people like a normal person to remain calm, avoid provocation, and immediately report the incident to the authorities, which I did the same as well. I lodged a police report, and I noticed that this client is very disturbed. And she came back and she said she apologized, and she told me to take back the case, and she went to the police station the next day, and she lodged a police report. So these kind of things, it's very, very crucial, and it's very clearly understandable that the person has got a very disturbed mentality. So this kind of things should be reported legally and should be done in a proper way. Until and unless the client needs help, then yes, I would suggest the Gen Z generations who are very into aggressiveness should be also given counseling in schools in order to make sure that they understand. Probably the counselors should give them certain lessons to make sure, or probably certain sessions to make sure to teach them their coping mechanism when they can't control their temper. And these are what you should do when you are provoked by a road bully. So avoid honking excessively, don't show them any gestures, and make sure all the doors of your cars are locked, and then use dash cams as proofs. And of course, you've got to lodge a police report to prevent and to make sure that you are in the safe side. And the key strategies used in counseling sessions are normally the CBT, which plays a very important role, and there should be a practice of relaxations technique used by the counselor towards all these cases that I've discussed on the narcissist case, the mental disorders among teenagers, and the road bullies. So it helps drivers to put themselves in the shoes of other road users as well when it comes to road bullies. So you've got to give them deep breathing techniques, the thought of stopping road bullies and narcissists, where sometimes it's very difficult to change them because it comes within them, but probably to make them recognize the negative behavior or the toxic behavior within them. And in conclusion, based on this study, parental plays a very important role. The society plays a very important role. Peer friends plays a very important role. And I would also believe in spiritual elements in educating the soul of the children to make sure they have got proper guidance and education when it comes to the scientific side as well as the spiritual side. And of course, when it comes to narcissistic characteristics, it's very complex and often misunderstood by it as a disorder. But by understanding them, in probably you can just practice the DSM-5 criteria. You can see that behind the confidence and arrogance they have, there should be a struggle in that. So the counselor plays a very important role in making sure the client, they upon the session there is changes. They build something. They have a stability in them as and make sure that there's an increase in empathy and to adapt reality, and to be more mature in handling certain scenarios. And thank you very much, Dr. Shabina. And I think today's presentation has helped us to understand on the three criteria that I've chosen to explain on. And thank you so much.